talked about the SEC East on our last live show. Let's go ahead and talk about the other side of the SEC, and that's the SEC West. What are the questions that we need answered in the SEC West? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Let's kind of go down the line here and talk about it. I think we got to start this whole conversation in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. A lot of people talk about LSU. We'll talk about LSU ourselves here in a second now. But when we sat down with Kirk Herbstreit yesterday, we were aligned in the sense that there's a lot of people looking at Alabama, pulling out the metaphorical clipboard and checking them out and just writing them off. You can hear that pen on my metaphorical clipboard right now, just kind of writing off the Crimson Tide. And I'll tell you what, not the first time it's happened. Not the first time someone's wrote off Nick Saban and said, they're done. Saban, yeah, game's passed him by. And then typically what happens is Nick Saban sort of stretches out, gets loose, and the Tide go on a run. So my question for Alabama is, how quickly do they get up to speed? Is new necessarily bad? Because across the country, that's the assumption. Hey, not the same returning production. Hey, new quarterback, new OC, new DC. Anywhere else in the country, outside of probably Georgia, that would be considered a bad thing. Because you're not as experienced, maybe it's not as talented, going to take a while to cut your teeth, and there may be a maturation process by nature of the question I just asked. But let's make sure we're on the same page here. New at Alabama is not necessarily bad. Want to know why? Because let's go through the On3 industry rankings for their recruiting classes since 2019. 2019, top-ranked class. 2020, second-ranked class. 2021, top-ranked class. 2022, second-ranked class. 2023, top-ranked class. You hear a lot of people on the outside saying that might be the best class Saban has ever signed. That's what the streets are saying. So what I'm saying here is the talent in Tuscaloosa, the cupboard itself, is very, very stocked. Do we know who's playing quarterback? No. Could be Jalen Milroe, could be Tyler Buckner, could be Ty Simpson. All of those guys have a lot of buzz around them out of high school. A lot of those guys were considered to be some of the most talented players at their position out of high school. So don't let a small sample size fool you, or no sample size fool you when it comes to Ty Simpson. I've said this before too. I don't think it matters who's playing quarterback quite as much as people want to make it sound. Quarterback's going to have his hands on the wheel. The engine's going to be the offensive line. The defense under Kevin Steele, I think it's going to be see ball, get ball. When you got a whole lot of dudes with stars next to their name that have been developed in that system, having see ball, get ball kind of defense, I think good things are going to happen. So new, is it bad? I don't think so. But the question is, how quickly do they get up to speed? And what is that new blood for Alabama? What does it look like? Excited to talk about it. Excited to see what happens there. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm going to say this too. Make sure you like the video right now. It would help us, help you. High tide, all boats, they rise. It's a good time. We'll keep on moving here. Let's talk about the Tigers of LSU. Brian Kelly and company, they show up, win total in Las Vegas. You're going through your preseason magazine and you see that LSU in 2021 going into 2022, in his first year, over under win total in Vegas, about 7 wins. That'd be improvement. They won 6 games the year before. That'd be improvement for the Tigers. Brian Kelly says, I'll see you that. I'll go ahead and win double-digit games. All the good people that put money on the Tigers to win over 7 games, you cashed in, and you cashed in with room to spare. But here's my question for LSU. Are we past the growing pains? Are we really past the growing pains? Multiple wins for LSU by 1 score. I also lost that game by 1 score against Florida State. Y'all will get a chance to get them back. But you hear what I'm saying. There was supposed to be this whole maturation process. There was supposed to be this whole deal where LSU kind of got back to being LSU. And we were saying, yeah, if they win 8 games, amazing. If they win 8 games, that'd be so great for our friends in Baton Rouge. But then they win 10 games, or I guess it was, they win 10 games to play for an SEC title. Well, now a lot of people are saying, well, what happens now? Well, what happens now? I mean, have we just ahead of schedule? My question is for LSU, the talent is in a great spot, I believe. The culture itself. What did we see last year from LSU in the games that they lost? It was kind of like you're watching LSU and There were times where they just sort of turned it on. I go back to that meme all the time where it's the guy who's leaning back in the chair playing a video game, and then when he really wants to get into it, when he wants to actually start playing, leans forward. We've all been there. We've all done that. It felt like that was LSU in the second half of the season. It felt like that was LSU a lot of times in the second half of games. Florida State, one of those games. Ole Miss, one of those games. Auburn, one of those games. Like, LSU had this moment where they had to flip the switch. And so my question is the flip switched permanently? Is the growing pains, are we past all that? Are we past the growing pains? Or is it going to be a thing where we still are wondering which LSU team shows up? Because that LSU team that lost to A&M last year had no business losing to Texas A&M. I think that was LSU taking their eye off the ball, and you saw what happened on the field. So that's the question for LSU. I'm not worried about talent. I'm worried about the psyche. Are we actually past all those growing pains? Is that reflected in the record that we saw last year? Or is it, hey, we're still kind of trying to get this thing to be doing things Brian Kelly's way? Spoiler alert, Brian Kelly's way is going to win you a lot of football games every single year. So that's LSU for you. The Auburn Tigers, from one Tiger to another, we got to talk about the Tigers here. LSU fans, Auburn fans, we had a good conversation, I think, on our last show on Tuesday. And I think that we got to kind of see eye to eye a little bit better. I feel good about where we're at relationally, myself and the Auburn fan base. So I'm glad that we're on good terms here. But the Auburn Tigers, my question is, how stable is that floor? When I say floor, I mean the floor of the roster talent-wise. Because Hugh Freeze showed up in Auburn, Alabama, rubbed his hands together, saw the transfer portal, and said, let's go to work, boys. Went and got himself a top 5 portal class. There's somewhere around 19 transfers that have transferred into Auburn, Alabama. A lot of those dudes, top guys at their position. Peyton Thorne going to be your quarterback, more than likely. So they've really done a lot to stock the cupboard the way that Brian Harsin maybe didn't stock the cupboard as much as you would hope if you're an Auburn fan. But with that being said, now you got some more ingredients to play with. It's like you take a boat and it had some holes in the bottom. It had some floorboards that weren't going to hold if you got out to sea or got into a storm. And Hugh Freeze, take a look at the boat, get some new ingredients, really shore that thing up a lot, and you feel a lot more sturdy, but you still got to push that thing out to the water. Still got to take that thing out to the storm that is the SEC, much less the SEC West. Curious to hear how much that talent is able to translate and mesh, because this is one of the reasons why I had to have a conversation with the Auburn fans. Your quarterback, likely your starting quarterback, Peyton Thorne, he got there after one of the most crucial periods of your season, which is spring football. Peyton Thorne is now playing catch-up with the playbook at Auburn and getting acclimated to the locker room at Auburn and the way Auburn does things. Like, it's a process to get totally in with your team from a scheme standpoint, like I said, from a locker room standpoint. There's a lot that goes into that. So not just Peyton Thorne, but other players as well that you added post-spring practice are trying to get up to speed. A lot of those guys that are going to contribute for you in a big way, or you needed to contribute for you in a big way if you want to get over that win total. So that's Auburn for you. I think the talent roster is improved, but curious how stable that floor is. All right, Texas A&M. Here's my question for you. Is it really that simple? Is it really that simple in College Station? We've heard so much about the talent they have, and talent is great, but talent only gets you so far. And last year, the number one complaint for Texas A&M fans is, what the heck are we doing on the offensive side of the football? What is going on when we got the ball? Because it felt like we got all this talent. We got Evan Stewart, who I think is going to have a tremendous year. Why are we not scoring more points? Why aren't we converting on third down? Why are we so far below average with all the talent we have? And so, whether he was forced to or not, Bobby Petrino enters into the fray to be your offensive coordinator. And I've said this once, I'll say it again. The way I think about A&M, it's like going to the chiropractor. Maybe you're a good athlete, and for whatever reason, you're just kind of feeling misaligned, you're sore, you got some nicks and bruises, and you just don't feel like yourself. Go to the chiropractor, one appointment, a little crack here, a little crack there, get the neck going a little bit. You know, they do that thing where they kind of pop your neck into place, whatever it is. I don't know, kind of freaks me out. But you know what I'm talking about. You come out of that chiropractor appointment, you feel like a new person. And it wasn't like you went and got surgery. You just got a few things tweaked in the right direction. Just a couple of tweaks, a couple of tune-ups to you, and you were good to go. Is that what it is with the Texas A&M offense? I said in that chiropractor analogy, you're a good athlete. Same thing with Texas A&M. They got a lot of talent offensively. Got a lot of talent on this roster with how well they've recruited over the last couple of years. I know the 2023 cycle is going to be what a lot of y'all in the comment section say, oh, well, they were number 15. Yeah, before that, though, they were living in the top 10 like it was their job. So not everybody's transferred out of College Station. I believe in Connor Wegman, and I'm just curious to see if that tweak on the offensive side of the ball, bringing in Bobby Petrino, if he does, in fact, get the sticks to the offense, is he able to make A&M a force in the SEC West? Curious to see. Now, Ole Miss does not get nearly enough love on this show. So for all my good people in Oxford that are watching this show right now, we love y'all, and we hope you're subscribed. But Lane Kiffin, to me, is must-see TV, must follow on Twitter. Like, I love Lane Kiffin. I'll just say that. I think he is hysterical. I think he's great for college football. My question for Ole Miss is, what is the next evolution? What does it look like? Because there's few certainties in life, and it's death, taxes, and Lane Kiffin coaching offensive football. And he does it really well, okay? So with Lane Kiffin, last year the offense scored a lot of points. I believe they were in the top 10 in terms of yards per a game. But my question is, evolution-wise, they need to be, I think, a different brand of football if they want to compete for the SEC West. Because last year, you had Quinshawn Judkins, Zach Evans, and you fed them like a newborn baby. I mean, you made sure they were eating all the time. And so with that being said now, weird analogy, stick with me. With that being said, I think Ole Miss might need to reevaluate their balance offensively because they ran the ball 60% of the time in 2022. I mean, like, it was Ole Miss and then it was Air Force, Army, Navy, all kind of grouped together with how much they ran the football. So with that being said now, for Ole Miss, that's great if you want to run the football. I think you have to run the football to be successful in the SEC. But to be elite in the SEC, you got to have balance because there's some good defensive lines you're going to run into. And if you are a one-trick pony going up against Georgia, going up against Bama, going up against LSU and the freak shows they have on the defensive line, like, that's not going to be a sustainable way to get through that entire conference. So I like Ole Miss. I'm curious to see who starts at quarterback. Seems to be a lot of buzz around Jackson Dart. I'm also sitting here saying I don't think Spencer Sanders came into Ole Miss as a transfer portal quarterback for no reason. They're both still there. So at this point in time, like, that's the situation. You got both those guys on the roster, which a lot of people said couldn't be done post-spring. They got to be able to have some balance. Just has to happen for Ole Miss. So last thing I want to look at here, and we don't have a graphic for these guys, but I want to talk about them just a little bit. Got Arkansas, got Mississippi State. I'm going to talk about them in the same way. What do those teams have in common? What do they have in common? Both wear shades of red, yes. They both have a quarterback. Arkansas's got KJ Jefferson. Mississippi State's got Will Rogers. KJ Jefferson was the reason why a lot of people in Arkansas circles and heck in SEC circles felt like they were a dark horse to maybe even compete for an SEC title, win double-digit games. But KJ Jefferson wasn't healthy. One thing led to another, and Arkansas didn't have the season that a lot of people hoped they would have. KJ Jefferson, if he stays healthy, even though they lost a lot of pieces, I think he gives you a chance in every single game. Same thing with Will Rogers. Proven commodity, thrown for 82 touchdowns in his career at Mississippi State. Offense is going to change now, be a little bit more pro style. The over-under win total for both these teams, Arkansas is at 7.5. Mississippi State, 6.5. So Vegas is telling you, hey, make a bowl game. That's great for both these teams. I'll say this. I don't expect either of these teams to win the SEC, but I will very confidently say one of these teams will ruin somebody else's chances of winning the SEC. Because you and I both know it, one team's going to walk in there on a sleepy Saturday and see Will Rogers, and Will Rogers don't care. He'll be dealing, and he'll make you go home unhappy on the bus. Same thing with KJ Jefferson in Arkansas. If you want to show up lackluster against a grown man like that, both running and throwing the football, it's going to be a sad bus ride home. So both those dudes, you got to make sure you are not looking past. Mississippi State, Arkansas. Who knows what they're going to be as a team, but having those quarterbacks always going to have a chance to win the ball game. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.